Those are both 2-year programs. We also have a significant number of students that are doing La Follette master's degree programs, along with joint degrees from other places, for example, the School of Public Health or the law school. A couple of years ago, we started an undergraduate certificate program. The program is designed to meet unmet need on campus, or what we perceive to be an unmet need and what students were telling us was an unmet need. There's lots of places around campus that offer policy-related courses, but there's nobody that really does policy. And several of our peer institutions, that is other universities, have sort of either certificates in public policy or full-blown majors. So we started with our first class in the spring of 2019. And right now we have about 150 students enrolled in the certificate program. With the sort of growth that we've had, we're are going to end up being one of the larger certificate programs on campus. We have already had numerous graduates of the certificate program, and indeed our master's program this year has some graduates of the certificate program. So this certificate is designed to meet the needs of students who are broadly interested in public policy. If you complete the certificate, you'll get a background in public policy analysis, statistical tools that are used in public policy analysis. You'll get some career experience and also some expertise in a specific policy area. About 20% of LNS graduates go on to careers in either federal government, state government, or local government. So we view the certificate as good preparation for these sorts of jobs. It's also a good preparation for jobs in the private sector that interact with public policy in meaningful ways, and there's lots of those sorts of jobs as well. In addition to preparing students for careers, we hope that the certificate can lead to students that are more informed citizens and better voters. Because of overlapping requirements, it's probably easier for students that are majoring in political science or economics to complete the certificate requirements, but it's open to all majors. I chair the certificate program, but I also teach classes in it. Once a year, I teach a course in La Follette that meets the certificate's social policy specialization requirement. That course is called Inequality, Race, and Public Policy. I also teach a similar course in economics that meets the same requirement. That course is called the Economics of Poverty and Inequality. I could probably talk a little bit later about how those courses are differentiated if you're interested. So with the rest of the session today, you're going to hear more about public affairs, the certificate programs, including the program requirements and how to apply. And we're also going to be providing you information on our graduate programs and some opportunity to meet our staff and to also speak with some students. And I will pass it on.
So great, thanks so much, Jeffrey. I'm going to ask each person besides yourself to just give a very brief introduction of yourselves. So why don't we start with Cartesia?
Hello, everybody. My name is Cartesia Lawrence. I am a first-year Master of Public Affairs student. I'm originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I also graduated from UW-Madison in 2015 with my undergraduate degree. So I'll be a double badger very soon. Nice to meet everybody here.
Thanks, Cartesia. Emma?
Hi, everyone. My name is Emma Stutzman. I am in my last semester of my accelerated MTA degree. I also am going to be a double badger. I graduated in December 2019 with my undergraduate degrees. And I'm also a teaching assistant in the program, and I see a couple students here today, so thank you for joining. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Emma, for being here. I know schedules are busy. Daniel?
Yeah, hi, thanks for having me. My name is Daniel. I'm a junior studying political science and international studies, with a certificate in public policy. And I'm from Middleton, Wisconsin originally.
Great, thanks. Elena?
Hi everyone, I'm Lena. I use they, them pronouns. I am a public policy certificate, also gender women studies certificate, and then majoring in community and environmental sociology and political science.
Thanks so much. We'll move to our staff line. Mo?
Hi everyone, my name is Mo O'Connor. I am the admissions and advising coordinator for the La Follette School. I specifically work with admission and advising of graduate students in our program, and I'm really happy to see you here today. And I'll put my contact information in the chat.
Thanks, Mo. David?
Hi everyone, my name is David Wright-Reset. I work as the Student Services Associate at the La Follette School. I've been here for about 4 years now and work with both our undergraduate and graduate students, as well as a little bit behind the scenes with some administrative aspects of the program. It's nice to see everyone.
Thanks, David. I just wanted to take a moment to introduce Marie, who couldn't be with us yet. I think she might be joining us. She's our Career Services Coordinator extraordinaire. She works with students directly to help them find both internships, clarify career options, and look for jobs upon graduation. So hopefully she'll be able to join us in a little bit. Great. So Cartesia, I think you were going to talk a little bit about public affairs and public policy. Is that right? Yes.
Yeah, so public policy is really important when you think about the ways in which the world works. People who are interested in public policies are those folks who are always questioning why things are happening and how we can sort of make things better. You could be one of those folks who is really concerned about transportation in urban cities. You could be one of those folks, like the picture shows, you're really concerned about environmental efficiencies and things like that. So public policy and public affairs is really interested in those things. Yeah.
Thanks, Cartesia. So, as you know, you showed up today. The challenge that we face is that many of the problems that we look at in public policy are really complex. Many, if not most, involve some kind of government or public intervention around the collective good. And in our public policy certificate, and even more intensively in our graduate programs, students learn how to use research and analytic methods from a wide variety of, this is kind of what I have a master's degree in public policy. What I really found fun and actually pretty cool was that I'm constantly working with people across disciplines. So I learn how to look at these problems from many, many different angles. So the coursework kind of introduces certificate students and graduate students into the range of the perspectives we might take on looking at these complex, sometimes known as wicked problems. And then we ask, rather than just sort of thinking about those things, what do we do about this? Like, what's worked? And what are some of the policies that have succeeded, especially around populations that are disproportionately affected and have inequitable outcomes? How do rules and processes and barriers get in the way of more common good, of more social equity? So the other thing that it's important to know about public affairs is that we spend a lot of time learning how to improve how we manage and lead organizations and initiatives. So there's sort of understanding the problems, but there's also how do we improve the way we approach them? So we spend a fair amount of time really looking at those ideas. At the La Follette School of Public Affairs, we have the certificate in public policy, but we also have graduate programs that Mo O'Connor and Emma will talk about in a little bit, as well as Lena. So we'll wait on talking more about those, but there are two different options for master's degrees, and then an accelerated option that you may be interested in talking more about. Somebody else is joining us, so I'm just going to let them in. So yeah, it's pretty exciting. We'll have a question and answer period in just a minute. I'm going to turn it over to David to talk a little bit about what the certificate itself has as requirements.
Thanks, Mary. I'm going to put a couple links in the chat to both the La Follette School's webpage, kind of outlining general information about the certificate, as well as a link to the guide, which will have some of the specific courses. But in order to learn more about some of the issues in public policy that Mary and Cartesia noted, and to give students some of the skills to address them, this is the curriculum that we have designed to help students give an introduction to what is public policy, some skills to address the problems that we find there, and some practical hands-on experience. So it is a 12-credit certificate. Students take 4 courses. For each of the courses are 3 credits each. So it is generally not too hard to squeeze in with some of your other major requirements. And it starts off with an introduction to public policy. That is the first requirement. There is one course that satisfies that the La Follette School teaches, and that is Public Affairs 200, Contemporary Public Policy Issues. It's a larger lecture course with discussion sections. We teach that every semester, and it gives kind of students an introduction to what is public policy and some current topics that are being discussed and how they're impacting society. These first 3 components, the introduction to public policy, followed by the analytic tools and the policy specialization, can be taken any order. And they also satisfy LNS breadth requirements, which may be something that you're trying to fulfill as an undergraduate student. But I just wanted to note that we, of course, encourage you to start off with the introductory course, but if you have already taken one or want to do them in a different order, that's okay. So following the introduction to public policy course, students have a couple options for the analytic tools component. There's Public Affairs 240, which is evidence-based policymaking, and Public Affairs 380, which is analytic tools for public policy. These are kind of an introduction to some of the really hard skills that our graduate students learn in the program, but you might, in one of the courses, write a policy memo, learn how to write a policy memo, or do a data visualization to give some life to what are these public policy problems look like to the eye. Those are usually smaller courses, usually 25, 30 students maximum in there. And the La Follette School teaches both of those. Moving on, there are a number of courses that the La Follette School offers, but also across campus that students can take to satisfy the policy specialization course. So this is really, or component, and this is really your opportunity to kind of delve into a policy area that's of interest to you. So like Cartesia was talking about, do you really care about environmental policy? Do you have a passion for health policy? There are a number of options across campus. And then finally, the internship component is kind of your opportunity to get a hands-on experience in public policy. So students simultaneously complete a policy-related internship and one of these internship courses. I think Mary's going to talk a little bit more about the value of them, but at the La Follette School, we do have a dedicated career services coordinator, Marie Coco, to help you find those internships that can qualify to enroll in one of these 3 courses. And I'm going to put those links in the chat and hand it back over to Mary.
Thanks so much, David. We thought it was really important for you to hear from a current certificate student. So I want to invite Daniel to share a little bit of his experience in right now doing an internship, as well as just through the coursework. And as you hear things that you might be interested in hearing more about, we'll have a bit of a break before we go on to the graduate program information, just for you to ask questions. So Daniel, why don't you talk a little bit about your path to this certificate and your experience?
Yeah, thank you. So I applied for the certificate program this summer. I thought it'd be a really great way to intersect my interests in not only foreign affairs, but also policy formulation, and just learn a little bit more about how a policy issue and idea turns into a law. So this fall, I took the introductory policy course with Emma Stutzman as my TA. Shout out. And this spring, I'm currently in the Wisconsin and Washington, D.C. internship program. This is a really great way for me to not only gain experience in an internship setting, but also gain classes alongside in the political science major. My internship is with Ambassador Planty of Planty and Associates LLC, where I'm working on independent consulting work in Latin America. So it's a really cool way for me to kind of intersect all my different pathways. And with that, I think it also helps me towards my certificate.
So thanks so much, Daniel. It's when this policy certificate was designed, it was really clear that taking a lot of what we learn in the classroom and applying that in a professional setting was really critical for students to really be like, oh, I see. And I see why this is useful. I've actually supervised a lot of interns in the health sector, and the sort of rapid learning that happens once you're actually out helping people solve problems or approach them in more creative or analytic evidence-based ways is super rewarding. So that's a sort of a unique piece. Some other certificates certainly do have practical application experiences, but it's a unique piece of our certificate. Daniel, if you feel comfortable going through these, you can. Otherwise, I'm happy to too.
Yeah, sure, I can do that. So yeah, the application opens and is open between May 1st and May 31st. And with that, you already have taken or have registered to take one of the required courses listed there. There are a lot of courses available, so you shouldn't have any issues in terms of scheduling that, especially if you're like a rising junior, for example, like I was. And yeah, you have to be at least a sophomore, so you're gonna have a pretty good chance to fit that into your schedule with a cumulative GPA of at least 2.0. You also have to write a statement of interest outlining why you'd like to complete the certificate. So just being able to link that to your not only academic but career objectives is what I did. And I think that kind of just sets you up for success in terms of really having a very logical pathway of why the certificate is the next step in your progression throughout your academic career. And yeah, contact Mary if you have any questions.
And Daniel, are you seeing sort of a linkage between some of the things you've gotten through your coursework and your internship now?
Yeah, I am. And also I'm taking another policy course through the Wisconsin and Washington, D.C. program. So it's just connecting the different dots between all my different coursework has been very helpful, and especially being able to apply that towards my internship too.
Very cool. Can you think of an example where, something came in handy from one of the courses you've taken? Does anything come up?
Yeah, well, so one of the courses that I'm taking, it's a specialization part of the certificate. So I did take problems in U.S. foreign policy in the fall. And so being able to translate that not only into my conversations with different people that I network with throughout the program, but also being able to apply that and understanding maybe current trends in Guyana relating to oil.
Interesting. So Lena, I also wanted to bring you into the conversation. Lena's a certificate student as well. Do you want to comment on your experience with the certificate?
Yeah, so I actually, when I came to Madison my freshman year, I was interning at the Capitol for a state representative, and that kind of like escalated into me applying for a fellowship at the Capitol over the summer. So I became really interested in public policy, and like Daniel said, it like kind of like clicks like with you, or I don't remember who said like it clicks like, oh, this is how like things work and how, you know, you can take an issue and turn it into a law. And I actually learned from one of my coworkers that the public policy certificate was a thing. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm on this. Like, so I applied. And since then, I have been elected to the Dane County Board of Supervisors in District 5. And I feel like I use a lot of the skills I learned in the public policy certificate, and that's directly applicable to the work I do on the county board, analyzing policy, creating legislation, just seeing how that works and just such like a personal level is really cool. But then also being able to like incorporate like, oh, I can look at this piece of legislation through a really critical lens and think about all sides of the issues before coming to like a responsible decision. And I don't know, I just think that's really cool. And I think the public policy certificate is great, and it's really versatile to pretty much any area you can think of, you know, from like healthcare to the environment to, you know, even like business and stuff. So really, really fits any mold. So yeah, I recommend had a good time or having a good time, I guess.
Thanks so much for that. I want to just also at this point ask if folks attending have specific questions for any of us, especially for the students in the certificate program, or about the requirements. One thing I wanted to point out is that in Search and Enroll, which is going to come up really soon, again, in Search and Enroll, when you look for our courses, there's a specific way to do that. And instead of putting public affairs in the subject line, put it in the keyword, one down, have all, and then search on the keyword. It's a glitch we're working out, but you'll find our full list of courses. So little insider knowledge there for those of you who are looking for our courses. And seriously, if you have any difficulty finding them or not knowing which one to take, don't hesitate to reach out to me. You'll have my contact information in the chat, okay? Any other questions for our students or about the requirements? Oh yes, please, Dana.
Hi. Yes, I just wanted to check. I'm in a kind of a similar situation to the one that Lena described, or Lena, my apologies. And I already did an internship with the Capitol, with the governor's office. And is it okay that that came before a lot of these courses? I'm also one of Emma's students right now, so I'm in PA 200 and loving it. But I want to make sure that that order is all right.
Nice. I'm going to actually hand that to David. David, do you want to field that question?
Sure. So yeah, there's no particular order that you need to have taken the courses in, although I just wanted to confirm. So for the internship component, students do need to do a course along with it. So if you did do one of those courses, you're all set, and you're nodding your heads. Okay, cool. Yeah. The order then is not important. Awesome.
And the course that you take along with the internship placement generally requires some check-ins, discussions, some readings that really help guide you in applying the skills. It usually has a paper that you write about your experience, which for most people that I've talked to really helps them sort of crystallize the lessons they're learning. Want to have a welcome for Marie Coco, who's joined us as well. Thanks, Marie, for getting here. So I'm going to move on unless anybody has other questions, and feel free to put those in the chat. I'm on two screens here, so I'm going to once again share the screen and invite Mo O'Connor and our graduate students, Cartesia, Emma, thanks again, to share more about the graduate programs at La Follette.
So hi, everyone. I'm going to talk about some of the ways that you can go about earning a graduate degree. And I know you might be here to learn about the certificate. So we're planting seeds, and those seeds may end up coming to fruition. So it's always good to have this information. There are 7 different ways students might choose to maximize their experience in our graduate program based on their interests and their goals. Current UW undergrads can apply to the accelerated program to start La Follette School graduate coursework while they're completing their final year of undergraduate degree requirements. Students who will graduate with their undergraduate degree in 3 or more years should apply to our 2-year graduate MPA or MIPA programs. And then students interested in dual degrees in public health or law, or perhaps that PhD in neuroscience that you'd like to add to your public affairs degree, they can apply to our dual degree programs to help them move forward in those areas. Students interested in urban planning may apply to the double degree with an MPA or MIPA, and that happens at the time of application in the UW-Madison Graduate School portal. So you can apply to up to 3 graduate programs at one time, and so that's useful for dual and double degrees. You can learn more about all of these options on our website. And so I am right now putting a link in the chat so that you can dip into those further if at all you have aspirations of any of those programs that I mentioned. Mary, can we go to the next slide, please? Thanks. I'm really excited. So, can we go to the accelerated MPA slide? Yeah, perfect. I'm really excited to have Emma Stutzman here to share more about her experience as an accelerated student and as some of you have experienced, a TA for PA 200. So I'm going to turn it over to Emma, and I'm going to also share her student profile. So if you do not currently learn from Emma as a TA in PA 200, you might learn more about her through this profile that I'm going to put in the chat too. But Emma, would you briefly walk us through the application requirements and maybe more importantly, why you chose to attend the accelerated program?
Yeah, totally. Thank you, Mo. So January 1st is the deadline, like it says, for applications. So it's for people who are in their junior year to apply. So you apply by like that January 1st of your junior year. You find out, I think I found out in like February or March, and then decide by the end of the year. So then you start. The way the accelerated program works is that kind of your last year of undergrad and your first year of grad school are kind of meshed together. And then you have one additional year that's just purely grad school. So that's the year I'm in. So instead of like a 4-year degree and then a 2-year degree, it's 5 years with that 4th year being a little bit of both. So the requirements for the application are, there's kind of a form that's like name, address, those sorts of more basic pieces of information. There's a statement of purpose, which I would really recommend. The website has some specific things that need to be included, but I'd also recommend going to the Writing Center and seeing if someone there would be willing to read it over or provide some feedback. That was really helpful to me when I was completing this statement of purpose, and especially if your Writing Center fellow is a grad student, they've been through that process and can help you fine tune and make sure you're like showcasing yourself and like selling yourself as why you'd be a good accelerated student. You also need 2 letters of recommendation from faculty. So if there are any professors that you had a particular connection with, so one of mine was for my history degree, you had to do a capstone paper and it was kind of like a semester long big project. So I worked with that professor very closely. So she was willing to write me that letter. And it's good to have a professor who knows you on a more personal basis so that they can speak to your qualifications, what makes you stand out. And again, really kind of sell you as a student. And then you also need a transcript with your GPA, a resume. And then there are also some prerequisite courses, which I believe we'll get to in a couple slides here. So I'll go into those now. But as far as why I decided to do the accelerated program, I mean, to me, it was a no-brainer. Like I was already, in Madison, loving being a Badger, loving being in, I think if you're someone who's studying politics and policy, like there's no better place to be. You're in the middle of action. And so when I found out about the accelerated program, I was kind of in a spot where I was like thinking about maybe going to grad school, not sure, if it was going to be too expensive or, I was like, oh, maybe I don't want to put my career on hold for that long. But the accelerated program provides you a really great way to not only, you're going to this like renowned institution, but also you're saving time. You can kind of combine your classes your senior year. And it also, because of that, can be a little more cost effective too, and save you a little time and money along the way. And I really have been so grateful and so fortunate to have such an amazing experience with La Follette. All of these staff members who are here today have been so helpful and supportive. And I just really can't recommend the program enough. One last thing that I just on the slide is, so you can't get funding. So like if you're a research assistant, or for me, like as a TA, those sorts of positions that come with funding or tuition remission, you can't have those until after you've graduated. So it would be mostly your second year.
Thanks so much, Emma, for all those points. She's a great ambassador of this program. So I think, you can follow up with her as necessary and ask any other questions. We're going to move forward to our next slide, and I get to have Cartesia share information about the required courses for the MPA and MEPA programs. I'm sorry, the admissions requirements for the MPA and MEPA programs, and also just to share a little bit more about kind of what her decision-making was that went into why she decided to come to the La Follette School. So I'm going to also include her profile in the chat so you can learn more, and I will turn it over to you, Cartesia.
Thank you, Mo. So just to go over the admissions requirements. So there is a graduate school program application that you'll have to complete. There's a statement of purpose, which is basically a personal statement. There's 3 letters of recommendation, 2 from faculty members. You have to have a 3.0 or higher cumulative GPA, a resume, prerequisite courses, and they differ for the MPA and the MIPA program. And then also you're going to want to take the GRE, which is the Graduate Records Examination, if I'm remembering that correct. And then one thing about the GRE that I know really impacted my timeline for applying for La Follette was that they only offer it like every few months. So you're really going to want to time out, sorry, my dog. You're really going to want to time out when you take the GRE and make sure that you are going to get your results back like dependent upon when you're going to apply to the program. And then I also didn't mention that January 1st is the deadline for applications, but those are just the applications for funding, right, Mo? You can still continue to apply around
That's
April
correct.
15th.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but yeah, thank you. And one thing just about the GRE, right now, the GRE has been waived due to, the barriers it's created for students, and the faculty are in communication right now and discussion about whether the GRE will be waived. So Cartesia wouldn't know those details, but I did just note that in the chat, and I would recommend that if you intend to apply to one of our graduate programs, you reach out to us. We should know that information, I would expect, by summer. Like getting in touch with us at that time, we'll be able to let you know whether or not the GRE is required. And as Cartesia was pointing out, November is usually the time we tell people is the latest time to take it, so that you have your scores by the January 1st deadline. Because as long as all of your admission requirements are in, then you are considered for funding. And I'll turn it back to Cartesia.
Yeah, thanks, Mo, for jumping in on that. And that sort of leads me to why I chose to file it. And I guess I'll start with funding, because that was a huge part about it for me. When looking for a graduate program, you're going to definitely want to consider how you're going to pay for it, because student loans are real and they impact your credit score, as I just found out not too long ago, so like for a bunch of different reasons, funding was important for me. Another reason why joining La Follette was important for me was in terms of location. I had recently moved back to the Midwest after a 5-year break between undergrad and graduate school, and I wanted to be close to my family. I had just had my first child, my son, so being close to family was very, very important for me. And then I'm also already a Badger, so I know the Wisconsin landscape and have pretty good relationships in the city. So that's another reason why I chose La Follette. And then the last one was because, like I mentioned before, I had 5 years in between undergraduate and grad school, and I spent those 5 years working in, a bunch of different areas. But I noticed that The folks that were working, that were really set apart and were, the folks that just really excelled at their jobs had those quantitative skills that I didn't necessarily have, because I didn't really know that I wanted to go into policy until a few years after I had graduated. So La Follette's emphasis on quantitative skills was really important for me, and it was something that stood out for the program. So those are three of the reasons why I chose Follette.
Thanks, Cartesia. And that's a perfect segue to the next slide, where I'll have Emma share a little bit more about preparation to apply between the two different degree programs, whether you're applying to the MP or the MIPA.
Yeah, so as was previously mentioned, these prereqs differ a little bit based on if you're going for the international aspect, that sort of degree track or not. But whether you're, applying to the accelerated, 2-year, or dual or double degree programs, you're going to have these prerequisites to complete that program at that time. So I'm guessing that the other dual degree options are going to have their own prerequisites, but these are the ones for the MPA and MIPA degrees. So you have to have taken Econ 101, which is Principles of Microeconomics, Poli-Sci 104, which is that intro level political science class that they offer, and then Stats 301, which is just sort of an intro to stats, or you could take Calc 1 as well. And then for the MIPA, it's again microecon, and then Econ 102, which is macroeconomics, Poli-Sci 120, which is Intro to Comparative Politics, or International Studies 101, which is Intro to International Studies. So again, you need to have that sort of international foreign policy experience when you're applying. And then stats again. And then the final component, the final prereq, is those 3 semesters of foreign language or study abroad experience. So these courses are kind of matched with the core courses you're going to need to take in your first year MPA or MIPA program. So for example, the first semester you take stats and econ. So if you don't have those classes under your belt, it's going to be really difficult to keep up, and that's why they're required. And then ideally, the admissions committee is looking for B's or higher in these prereqs affiliated with the program.
Yeah, so this slide is going to show you the required courses that you're going to take once you're in the MIPA or MPA programs. First year students are going to take these classes as a cohort. And from my experience, this has been awesome. Been able to form some really solid relationships with classmates, even though I'm in a virtual landscape. So those classes are, for your first year, are Public Affairs 818. That's Introduction to Statistical Methods. So that's going to be the class where you do stats. It's really challenging to be very transparent and vulnerable with you guys. Is really challenging. But I think I got around that, like I said before, by building relationships with classmates and establishing study groups. The second class you're going to take is PA 880. That's Microeconomic Policy. Also pretty challenging. But I learned a whole lot about econ in this class, and learned a whole lot about it in that class. And then PA 874 was the policy making process. So this is going to be the first class that really introduces you into political theory and where sort of public affairs and public policy sort of began, and then how it's developed throughout the years. And then you're also going to get started on writing some policy memorandums and to really get you started into the public affairs and public policy world.
And I took those same courses. I will just note that in the accelerated program, if you choose to pursue that, it does get a little, for the year that you're an undergrad, you might not be taking these classes at the same time as all the other first years just because you don't have room in your schedule, but at some point you will take all these classes. So in addition to the ones that Cartesia already talked about, I took PA 873, which is policy analysis. And that's a really useful course where we kind of get into the nitty gritty of how to look at policies and how to, evaluate them. And then, the final project is writing a policy memo. Then there's also PA 878, which is public management. And that's sort of talking about different ways to think about how to manage people and resources in public institutions. And then finally, I'm currently taking PA 869, which is the capstone course. So it's kind of like a thesis, like other master's programs have like a thesis that you have to write, but this one, it's a client project that you work on all semester. So I'm right now working with 5 other La Follette students, and we're looking, it's for the Wisconsin Health Professionals for Climate Action. And we're looking at different policies that Wisconsin could adopt to support the transition to renewable energy. So we're looking at workforce policy, transportation policy, and just different aspects of getting Wisconsin to carbon-free energy. So MIPA students also take these same classes, except not policymaking process or public management, and then instead they take PA 850, which is international governance, and then PA 854, which is macroeconomics, or PA 856, which is international trade and finance, depending what is offered at the time.
So both the MPA and MIPA degrees are meant to be really highly individualized and interdisciplinary, so that you can take electives where you gain background in a specialized area. You can broaden your analytical skills and allow you to go deeper into an area like public management. So far, I am currently in an urban and regional planning elective, so one that's not even in the La Follette network. But the class is about housing and public policy. So we're really getting into the history of mortgages, how those were created, and then also how, you know, race and ethnicity was considered when, you know, the concept of a mortgage was created in the country, because that wasn't even done until the 1930s, and how home ownership has really developed from the policies that were implemented in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. So like I said, electives are really going to help you get deeper into your policy area, and that it don't necessarily have to be within La Follette. They can be within the law school, or like the one I'm in, the urban regional planning department, the social work department. So can really broaden your skills.
And I've taken a couple electives as well. So I've taken aging and public policy. I also received credit for an internship I completed in the state treasurer's office. And then last fall, I took a class on state policy issues with former Governor Jim Doyle, which is like another selling point of the university and its location is just like the ability to have these, you know, I think there's 1 or 2 former governors who come in and will teach classes, you know, those people who have actually done the work that you can learn from. And then I'm also currently in public budgeting, which is a cool, again, like a hands-on, like learning a skill that's applicable to the workforce.
So you can see why they're amazing, these 2 students, and why they're great ambassadors of this program. We're going to turn it over to Marie now, and I'm going to also just say that we're so lucky to have her. She is a fountain of information, and she's a really important support for our students. So take it away, Marie.
Thanks, Mo. Hi, everyone. As Mo said, my name is Marie Coco, and I'm the career coordinator here at La Follette. I've been with La Follette for about the last year and a half, but prior to that, I spent 10 years over at SuccessWorks. And so, you know, you've heard the students talking about the courses that they take and how those help them develop their skills. Well, I'm all about, okay, you got all these great skills, who's gonna pay you for them? So I help you to find those great internships where you can get some practical experience before you graduate. And then of course, helping you find wonderful jobs after you graduate. I don't know if anyone's talked about it already, but La Follette has an enormous, really enormous and very engaged alumni base. Our alums love to help you guys. And that doesn't matter if you're in the undergraduate certificate program or whether you're in the master's program, they are here to help and they want to help. And so, you know, creating connections with our alumni, providing a bunch of different career programming types of things. We've done a bunch this semester with local government agencies, and we have our last one of the season coming up. It's with a gentleman who's on our board of visitors, actually, and will be teaching a course for us this fall. His name is Roger Urban. He's an absolutely astounding career. So, you know, getting the chance to be exposed to folks like that. On this call today, you have Daniel, who Daniel and I were talking the other day in an appointment. We discovered I have known him since he was a freshman, which stuns me because I'm like, no, it hasn't been that long. And then I'm also working with Emma right now. I believe, Emma, I owe you a resume critique or something. I know it's in my inbox and I will get to it. But I'm in a conference right now, so I'm kind of like back to back today. But you know, there are so many things that our students go into, and if you look at here, let me hit my send button here. If you look at the second link, the first link is just to our career pages in general, which you're more than welcome to explore. The second one is to our career statistics, and that is from the class of 2020, who, as you can imagine, they graduated last year into the COVID economy, basically. COVID had happened just around this time, and they graduated 2 months later. 96% of those students were employed in their field or a field of their choosing by December. So that says a lot about La Follette as a school. This is our graduate statistics, I should mention. We've only had our undergraduate certificate for 2 years now. This is we're running up on our second year now. And so we don't actually have the statistics on those students yet, but we hope to in the future. I would say the biggest area our students go into is definitely state government, followed very shortly thereafter by nonprofits. And then a smattering that goes between the private sector, which a lot of it is consulting, such as Deloitte or Grant Thornton, places like that. And then city and county government and federal government. So kind of a mixture of those types of things. Is there anything that I didn't? Okay, those are the sectors right there. Yeah, foundations. Foundations includes, there are students who have an interest in philanthropy, so areas like that. In the conference that I'm attending today, one of the students, or one of the speakers, I should say, made a really good point, which was, if you have this dream somewhere in your mind of wanting to work on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., and also to get a policy degree, she says, you know, the best way to do it, go ahead and get the undergraduate certificate, absolutely do that. Then go off to DC, because the reality is you're going to make about $30,000 a year. You're going to work about 20 hours a week. It's hard, it's low paying. And after you've done that for a couple of years, you are so ready for graduate school. You don't want to really do it the other way around, because coming out of graduate school with all these wonderful skills like Emma's been talking about and Cartesia has been talking about, and then going to a $30,000 a year job in an expensive city like DC, that can be rough. It's also somewhat demoralizing, I hate to say. But so think about, those are some things I can help you think about as you go through this process. I think that goes to, we're turning over to Jeffrey. Is Jeffrey next, I believe? Yes.
Yeah, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about our wonderful faculty. So traditionally, we've had a real strength in social policy, but over the years, we've strengthened in other areas as well. Part of this was facilitated by a $10 million gift from our former Wisconsin Senator Herb Kohl, which allowed us to do a bunch of hiring last year. I think we hired 6 new faculty members last year. So you can just see we have lots of people in social policy, but also a strong group that does environmental policy, and particularly focused on the climate, and also folks that do international policy, both from like international affairs perspective, but also from economics. We have an emerging, well, not emerging. We have strong, really strong scholars in this area. More than I know anywhere else, people that do social genomics. This is kind of looking at the connections between genes and environment and how they influence behavior and other outcomes, and also how genes and environment interact with public policy. And then we also have a strong group that's interested in health and aging policy. Of course, there's overlap between these two things, because there might be, you know, some social policy that also kind of falls into health and aging policy as well. And then we also have a strong public management group. And so, I guess we could just continue. If folks have questions about specific faculty members or something, I'm happy to try and answer those.
Thank you so much, everybody, for the great overview. I myself can say that after, doing a undergraduate in political science at UW-Madison, and then doing my master's in public policy, and specifically in health policy, and working for 25 years out in the private sector and in consulting and in the public sector at the federal level, at the state level, at the local level. It's so fun to advise undergrads. Yay! Because the number of settings that these skills, I can absolutely say the number of settings that these skills are appropriate and actually in such demand, and then how to talk about those skills. Marie can attest, there's a lot of need. We need you. So if anyone has questions right now, we have a few minutes left that we'd love to hear what you're thinking. Anyone? I want to engage a little bit more with, Jeffrey.
Can I just mention something? I had to do with graduate applications. I just didn't want to interrupt anybody there. But if we're kind of thinking about this GRE and how that might go, certainly if the GRE is eliminated as a requirement for application for the master's degree programs, that is going to increase the importance of the prerequisites. And so I just wanted to emphasize that, to really take those seriously, because that's kind of how we can gauge whether or not you're going to be successful in the program or not, is kind of based on past coursework.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Good advice. So students in our current programs, does any of you want to share kind of how you discovered that policy was your interest area? I know we heard a little bit about that, but how did you sort of decide, wow, this is cool, this is what I want to do? What was your story? Does anyone want to volunteer that?
For me, I think it goes back to, so I am from Wisconsin. My parents are both public school teachers. And so in 2011, when Act 10 happened, that had a big impact on my family. And I was lucky that my parents, we went to the protests, like we were involved. They kind of tried to educate us on what was happening. Obviously, I was in 7th grade, so I don't think I got everything. But I mean, it was just the first time that, and this comes from kind of a privileged background, that it was the first time that policy had really affected my life. But it was the first time I saw, like, okay, this one piece of legislation they're trying to get in place, there's hundreds of thousands of people here who are like, this is going to really like impact their day-to-day lives. And we're still seeing the effects of it on teachers and how they're talked about and the benefits they receive. So that was the first time it kind of clicked for me that it was more than just like, I can name a bunch of presidents. Like, I liked that kind of the pomp and circumstance of it, but it was like, okay, I could be doing something that really could help people. And I think that's kind of what I got to at the end of college. I was like, okay, I want to like work hard and do what I can to do what I think is right to help people.
Thanks so much for that. Any of the other current students? Like, I was thinking, Lena, you're on the Dane County Board of Supervisors. What kinds of issues are you working on as an elected official?
Yeah, so I like my main thing I focus on right now is like decarceration and finding alternatives to policing in our community. That's something I've been working on a lot. But also, I'm trying to think now. I work at so much, like literally, like this week has been just so busy, and my brain just kind of like blipped out for a second. But yeah, working on a lot of like finding, like altering like county ordinances to ensure that equitable practices are happening. Like we are finding different service vendors from a lot of different like diverse providers, so it's not just the same established providers, and making sure that like everyone in our community is getting their needs met. Also, this year has been really hard, like with the budget. It's my first year on the board and it's during COVID. So trying to navigate like what we do with like federal funds, like where we allocate that money, and how we can provide like eviction relief and rent relief like in the county through like services like the Tenant Resource Center and other things like that. So that's just kind of like what I've been working on.
Yeah, that would be immersive education right there. Sitting on the county board. I know we're almost at time, and we are recording this. So if you have friends, I know that several students contacted me and said they had class, but if you have friends and acquaintances who you feel like, oh, they're always talking about, fill in the public issue, don't hesitate to put them in touch, because a lot of times the name public affairs or public policy is a little mysterious to people, and we're really happy to talk about what that means for folks. Did any of the staff, any of the staff or anybody else have anything else you wanted to share today?
I do.
Yes, Mo, please.
I'm putting it in the chat. So we, as Marie said, we don't yet have a pie chart because this certificate is new. And but I wanted you to see that there are students who are doing some great things, who graduated with their undergraduate degree and the undergraduate certificate in public policy, just to show you where they're working and what their position is. And so I thank Marie for the research she did on that by looking up some of the LinkedIn profiles of some of these graduates. So that's also really helpful, I think, to balance what you've seen about the graduate program.
I just also like to say a word about how we're differentiated from perhaps other programs around the country. This is more at the graduate level, but hopefully it also applies to the undergraduate level as well. So we're relatively small. Of course, we're growing in faculty size, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the graduate school program is growing in size. It really hasn't, and there's not plans for it to do so. So a small program, it's sort of if we think about public policy programs, it's more of a liberal arts model of a public policy program, in that there are fewer required classes for our degree than there are for comparable degrees throughout the country. And really, so the model is that you take some classes at La Follette, but you also have the freedom to go out and take classes in other parts of the university to really expand the breadth of your degree in that way. The other thing that I'll say, and hopefully this showed up today, is that La Follette staff and faculty are very nice people. So it's a really collegial environment, kind of open doors for faculty, and people are happy to see you. Not like, oh, you're a pesky undergraduate or anything like that. We like you. We want to talk to you. And so I think those are kind of important ways in which we're differentiated, and the students too. I mean, the students I really enjoy them. They're nice people, fun to teach, fun to hang out with. So.
That is a fabulous note to let you go back to your various and sundry afternoon obligations. So again, don't hesitate to get in touch. And I know I've talked to a couple of you, Meg, and so far. So yeah, thanks for coming. And we hope to see you in our certificate application. Thanks to all of the students for taking time. I know it's precious right now.
Thanks, everyone. It was nice to see you.
Good care.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.